Apparently, Cheetos are the best way to attract crows. And there's actually a weird secret smell that can instantly get girls in the mood, if you know what I mean. If you want to know more about this, stick around, because I'm Mike with List 25, and I'm bringing you 25 short random facts that I bet you didn't expect to hear. Cheetos are the best way to attract crows. The cheesy snack is a favorite of ornithologists, or bird experts, who want to study their feathered friends. But why Cheetos? Because they're brightly colored and they have a strong smell, meaning they can attract crows from pretty much any distance they need to. Studies have also shown that crows will wait for magpies to taste Cheetos first before swooping down and eating the treat themselves. Cheeto magpies? I still feel like a canary in a coal mine has a better ring to it. Pumpkins and Halloween go together like Michael Myers and a kitchen knife. But back in the 19th century, however, things were different. The business of carving a jack-o'-lantern involved turnips, not pumpkins. Irish folk used turnips, plus another veggie called mangelwurzel, to create their creepy lighting arrangements. Turnips were used to honor the legend of a freaky-sounding Irish character from folklore named Stingy Jack, who got on the wrong side of the devil. Pumpkins became jack-o'-lanterns because Irish immigrants found more pumpkins in North America than turnips. Pumpkins and Halloween are a natural combo, but here's one that sounds weird, but might just help spice up your love life. According to science, women find the smell of candy mixed with cucumber a turn-on, specifically candy from Good and Plenty. This crazy fact was discovered by the Smell and Taste Treatment Research Foundation, who conducted their research in the 1990s. The blend of candy and cucumber sounds odd, but the point is that the smell is both sweet and fresh, which apparently makes women feel at ease. The character of Yoda was first introduced in 1980's The Empire Strikes Back, where science geeks in the audience may have found the Jedi Master's face a little familiar. How so? Well, one of the makeup artists on the production, the late Stuart Freeborn, decided to use Albert Einstein as a visual reference. This is especially notable around the eyes. I'm really glad they didn't give Yoda a mustache, though. The Force gives balance to all things, including snails. You may not know the name Patricia Highsmith, but you've probably seen a production based on one of her books, such as Ripley on Netflix. The author enjoyed writing about deception and intrigue. However, when she wasn't being an author, she liked to mess with snails. She reportedly kept 300 of the slimy things as an alternative to a cat or dog. Why snails? Highsmith found them resilient, not to mention easy to look after. Naturally, snails appeared in her stories too. Polar bears hibernate, a long process for which they need to be prepared. This includes adding extra weight, 400 pounds of weight to be precise. That's the equivalent of a lion or a motorcycle. While it sounds extreme, remember that they need to sustain both themselves and their babies through their vital fat reserves. A bear can lose as much as a third of its body mass while in hibernation, so it needs to stock up on those juicy fish. Fish that I guarantee didn't smell as bad as 17th century Europe. How come? Well, because back then they used to keep their farts in jars. Yeah, you heard me correctly. People did this for medical reasons, thinking that by opening the jar and inhaling the awful stench, they would avoid catching the Great Plague. Back then, doctors believed in the power of miasmas, or unpleasant smells, not only in spreading diseases, but also fighting against them. By their warped logic, farts beat plague every time. Keeping a fart jar pushed the envelope of science. Meanwhile, our next subject handled a different kind of envelope. We have a mailman to thank for avocados. Or at least the ones we enjoy today, which are Haas avocados. The individual I'm referring to is postal worker Rudolf Haas, who worked in California in the 1920s. The cultivation of avocados actually dates back to around 500 BCE, but Haas stumbled upon a variety that was distinctly rich and creamy. He was looking to grow avocados based on a buzz around them at the time. The tree he grew didn't produce any usable fruit, so he ignored it, with surprisingly effective results. To his surprise, it started growing what soon became the planet's #1 avocado. Did you know they had customer service back in the era of 1750 BCE? We know this because of the world's oldest known customer complaint. A Mesopotamian merchant received a clay tablet, which shows negative feedback at a time thousands of years before Amazon. This historic wine fest was made using an ancient writing system called cuneiform. Apparently, the merchant had been pretty sloppy with his copper delivery. We've all been there, right? Look closely at the moon, and you may think you see a face. That's the legendary image of the man in the moon, and you might believe it applies to all cultures. Not so. In Japan, they look up at the moon and see the image of a jade rabbit wielding a mallet. That sounds weird. However, a rabbit carrying a mallet is part of traditional folklore over there. What does the moon rabbit do? Some believe that it pulverizes rice cakes. I'm sorry, come again? This appears to be part of an activity where the rabbit makes an immortality potion. Is gambling the root of all evil? I have some compelling evidence that supports this theory. If you tally up all the numbers on a roulette wheel, you'll get the total 666. 666 is famously the number of the beast and is associated with everything dark and disturbing. In fact, it's believed that Blaise Pascal, the 17th century mathematician behind the game of roulette, made a deal with Lucifer himself, resulting in the ubiquitous 666. The Wild West was more sophisticated than you may have thought. In the then town of Corinne in Utah, unhappy couples could split up super fast via modern technology. It certainly wasn't the norm, but the vending machine, which offered ready-to-sign divorce papers, was highly convenient. It cost $2.50 to use the machine, which is the equivalent of around $75 today. Now that's what I call service, and our next story is just as efficient. Guess what percentage of American waste goes to landfill? The answer is an eye-watering 62%. Putting our garbage in landfill is becoming a serious problem around the world, but other countries have the problem licked. Take Sweden, for example. The percentage of waste they send to landfill is an incredibly low 1%. They make the rest of the planet look like a bunch of meatballs. Now, Sweden's thrown us a curveball, and here's another one. To unfriend someone is a term that comes from modern social media use, right? Wrong. The word actually dates back to the year 1659. That's right, I'm talking about the 17th century here. Even more amazingly, it was used by a clergyman, or religious figure, from the Church of England. I wonder who he unfriended. Whoever it was, they wouldn't enjoy a brunch together anymore. Brunch started out as a British tradition in the late 19th century, and it was suggested by a hungry man named Guy Barringer. It had a very specific purpose also. The idea was, you ate brunch after sleeping off the effects of a Saturday night party. In other words, it was a hangover cure. Brunch became a healthier alternative to the traditional gut-punishing lunch that some people enjoy on a Sunday. One word you might use in the grip of a mighty hangover is, huh? If you're ever in trouble making yourself understood in a different country, you might want to use the word huh. Huh is a recognized expression across the globe, as revealed in the findings of a scientific study in the early 21st century. I'm not sure you can make a whole conversation out of the word, but at least people there will know you're confused and in need of help. Another situation where you might need help is if you're caught jaywalking. Crossing the street without due care and attention is a long-standing no-no. The legal term is jaywalking, which is thought to come from the J-shaped walk a jaywalker makes when dodging vehicles and such. If you think that, well, you're wrong. The J in jaywalking is J-A-Y, as in the old-fashioned word meaning idiot. This historic term was aimed at country folk trying to navigate towns and cities who nearly got flattened by cars in the process. From law-flouting fools to curious blind people now. Here's a question. How do the people know what's going on in magazines like Sports Illustrated? Easy. They read a special Braille edition of the publication, released through a scheme from the Library of Congress. Congress pays for the magazines to be printed by the National Library Service for the Blind and Print Disabled, meaning the visually impaired can stay up to date with goings-on in the world of sports, plus many other areas. That fact was just so useful, I just couldn't keep it to myself. When I do want to keep things to myself, however, I rely on my inner voice. It transpires that our inner voices are pretty powerful too. It may seem like a totally psychological thing, but it can also be a physical one. When you use your inner voice, it stimulates the muscles in your larynx. Your larynx is a vital part of your voice, though thankfully those muscle movements aren't turned into speech. We'd all be in big trouble if we spoke with our inner voices. If in doubt about what voice to use, ask someone, such as Mario and Luigi. Today, when we get into trouble playing a video game, we simply look up the tips, tricks, and hacks online. Back in the 80s, that wasn't possible, so what happened? Nintendo decided to address the needs of gamers by setting up a phone line they could call for assistance. Remember, this was before Google, so the so-called counselors had to rely on old-school paperwork in order to offer the correct advice. They were still serving the public in 2010. One game you probably don't need a helpline for is Chinese checkers. Why do they call it Chinese checkers? The answer is that the games company wanted to make it sound more interesting. If the name changes hadn't happened in the late 1920s, then Chinese checkers would still be known by its German handle, Sternhalma. Yes, it was originally a game from Germany. Some Chinese people probably enjoy playing Chinese checkers, but that's as far as the connection goes. Defeating an opponent at checkers can be simple, but beating weeds in the garden can be a full-blown nightmare. Don't ask for a weed whacker or weed eater when traveling to land down under. They call them weed snippers instead. If you think about it, it's the more accurate description of the product, which whips and snips its way through the problem weeds. Whether you whack, snip, or strim, it's all the same. However, you should know that this name is particular to Australia and New Zealand. If you're buying a whippersnipper, it helps if the salesperson has a nice face, though. You may have heard the expression baby face, as in someone having a cute face that's, well, a lot like a baby's. Well, there's actually a scientific explanation behind this. A face which features large eyes plus a small nose and chin plays into our ideas of a schema. What's that? The schema is a framework our mind uses to organize information. When we see a baby-faced individual, be they a baby or a grown adult, we experience a kinkenshima, or baby schema. As a result, we view that person as being super cute. They could be a nice person, they could be a bank robber. Either way, there's no denying that kinkenshima. Speaking of cute, there's one thing that little kitties find irresistible. There's an ingredient in catnip that drives our feline friends wild. It's called nipetolactone, and this compound acts like a Class A substance for cats. By cats, I mean all cats. It's been known for big cats, such as lions and jaguars, to get their fix from the household product. Just be careful how you handle the stuff, because the big cats might decide to start playing with you. In that situation, you might end up needing an obituary. And not just a regular one, but an award-winning one. Random as it may sound, obituary writers have their own award-giving ceremony, just like everyone else. These prizes are referred to as the Grimmies. The Grimmies were started by the Society of Professional Obituary Writers. Unsurprisingly, the awards are shaped like miniature gravestones. They even have a Lifetime Achievement Award, which, let's face it, is an odd thing to say about an obituary writer. When they write my obituary, they say I'll give a good fact. Plus my headstone will probably be shaped like a giant subscribe button. But that's it for today. However, there's still time for one of the ultimate pieces of short random trivia. What was the name of Dr. Evil's shoe-throwing henchman in Austin Powers? Was it A, Random Task, B, Random Ronnie, C, Ricky Random, or D, Mr. Random? Drop your answers in the comments. And if you're looking for even more unforgettable facts, then we have another 25 bite-sized chunks of fun ready to watch right here. As always, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, especially if you found yourself returning to our channel, and tap that bell to stay updated on all our future videos. I'll see you again next time.